as we know, this 2021 NFL Draft quarterback class is pretty loaded. We've been talking about the big four, the top four quarterbacks: Trevor Lawrence, Justin Fields, Zach Wilson, and Trey Lance for quite a while, and that all four very easily, probably more than likely, are all going to be drafted in the top 10 of the 2021 NFL Draft. Now, we should the next name, and the next name in there is Mac Jones. He's probably, I would say, pretty consensus wise, the fifth quarterback in this class, and he's viewed as probably a first round pick. And some people say, hey, he's going to be a first round pick, probably later in the first round. Others say he's a top 20 pick. There's some saying that he could even be another top 10 pick. So much we've got former general managers saying, hey, I don't think he might not last past the 10th overall, the 8th overall pick. And then a key thing that I saw today from NBC's Peter King, and one thing that Peter King mentioned in his that Mac Jones, don't be shocked, and he said don't be shocked. I guess he said he wouldn't be shocked if Mac Jones ended up being the fourth quarterback taken ahead of Trey Lance. Now, before instant reaction for me at least was, are you serious? I have Trey Lance being a top 10 pick. I got a first round grade on him. Whereas a guy like Mac Jones, I have more of a, I'd probably say a late second, early third round grade. I know he's probably going to go in the first round. Quarterbacks do that way. I'm not going to be shocked if he goes in the first round. So when I first saw that, I kind of was, and I wouldn't say dismissive of it, but it definitely, I was skeptical. But then if you read more into what Peter King said, and Peter King is dialed in. He is one of the most dialed in journalists out there. Him, Adam Schefter, Chris Mortensen, those guys, they've got general managers, pro personnel, department people, scouts. They're talking to those people. So he's not just saying this to say this. And so if you look more into Peter King's comments, he didn't just say, oh, I wouldn't be shocked that this happened. He highlights the fact about Trey Lance in his lack of games. If we think about it, as good as Trey Lance is, and I've even seen people talk about how, Trey Lance is a better prospect than Justin Fields. Like, if he could go higher than Justin Fields, he could be the third quarterback taken. Let's not forget, Trey Lance has only played one game in 500 days? He only played one game this season because North Dakota State is playing this spring. And they played that showcase game against Central Arkansas that Lance played in. And he didn't play fantastic. He didn't play terrible. But he didn't have this just dynamic showcase of a game. He kind of struggled and had to use his legs to, get North Dakota State the win. And before that, he's only played 1 year as a starter. And so if you take from where his national championship win was compared to where, we are today, that's one game. And like I said, how many days has it been? And for teams to use a first round, a top 10 pick on a quarterback, they want to know that quarterback's going to hit. And you may say, well, Brian, Mitchell Trubisky started 1 year and he was the second overall pick. And that's true. But I think teams are a little bit more skeptical. And I think Mac Jones is a guy that is somebody to keep an eye on. There's some comparison there's a lot of comparison and discussion going on between him and Tua Tagovailoa, who was the 5th overall pick in the 2020 draft. And no one batted an eye at Tua Tagovailoa being that 5th overall pick, and Mac Jones with, I'd say, a little bit lesser talent, put up similar stats, similar results that Tua had. And so you may say, oh, he's a game manager. He's not going to, carry the team on his back. He's just going to distribute the ball to the receivers. He needs to have good weapons to have that success. But he still was able to manage to do that. And we've seen players like him come in and have success. And so I think this is something to kind of keep an eye on. The Carolina Panthers are an interesting team picking 8th overall. And let's assume Trevor Lawrence goes number 1. Pretty safe assumption. He goes number 1 to the Jaguars. Number 2, New York Jets. Let's assume they take Zach Wilson. Okay? There's other teams in there. Atlanta could take a quarterback. Wouldn't shock me if the Detroit Lions took a quarterback. Maybe a team like the Bears or someone moves up and gets Justin Fields. And so now the Panthers are sitting there at pick 8, and they've got Trey Lance and Mac Jones that they're trying to decide between. Because maybe we know that their owner wants them to get their franchise quarterback. They're heavy in the Matthew Stafford trade. They're heavy into Deshaun Watson trying to get him. They want their quarterback. But look, and conventional wisdom to me is say, hey, you got Trey Lance. He's the 4th best quarterback in this draft, a guy that I think is a top 10 pick. Just take it. But don't forget that Mac Jones was at the Senior Bowl. He didn't play in the game. He didn't do every single thing on the field, but he was there, and the team that was coaching him was the Carolina Panthers. Mac Jones, as a passer of the football, is very similar to Joe Burrow. Who did Joe Burrow play for at LSU as his offensive coordinator or co-offensive coordinator, passing game coordinator, whatever you want to call it? Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Carolina Panthers. So, and I've said this in a previous video, the Senior Bowl this year is the most important Senior Bowl because it is the only opportunity for these NFL teams to physically meet in person with these prospects. They're not able, they have to do Zoom interviews with Trey Lance, with Justin Fields, with Zach Wilson. They didn't have to do that with Mac Jones. They were not only there meeting him in person, but they also got to coach him during the week. He's got a similar skill set. Joe Burrow was a distributor, a high-level distributor who was a fantastic mover within the pocket. But the Carolina Panthers could see Mac Jones and say, hey, this is a guy that we could probably start soon. Trey Lance, they may say, maybe we got to sit him a year, develop him, hope he hits. Yes, he's got the physical talent. Yes, he's, got the high potential, guy that could carry a team. But it's a big shot in the dark. Why don't we take a shot on Mac Jones? We feel like we got an offense that he could use to distribute. You got Robbie Anderson. They got DJ Moore, Curtis Samuel, Christian McCaffrey, hopefully for a full season. Don't be shocked. Like Peter King said, he's not going to be surprised. While I don't think it's the best move, I'm not going to be surprised either. I think Mac Jones, the closer and closer we're getting to the NFL draft, he's someone we got to keep an eye on. And I don't think this is this random quarterback that everyone's pumping up to be a first, top 10 overall pick, and then he doesn't get drafted in the first couple of rounds. Mac Jones is going in the first round. And I think it is somebody you got to keep an eye on in that top 10. I don't think he's going to be the 4th quarterback taken, but I'm in agreement with Peter King. I am not going to be surprised if he is the 4th quarterback taken and he goes ahead of one of those big 4 that we long had thought was going to be a lock top 4 quarterback taken.